All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Reactionary Opinions. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Get yourselves ready for some severe triggering this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We've opened up all the cans of triggering, and we're going to take some deep swigs of the triggering. D-Dogs, yeah, what's going on there, D-Dog?
Oh, I'm just ready to shotgun some triggering right now, so I'm doing pretty good.
Absolutely. Russell, what's going on there, bro?
No, I'm just ready to chat with you guys on this controversial topic.
Yeah, and a controversial topic it is. I just want to go over here to what Dylan puts his things as regards Dylan Williams, aka D-Dog, aka High IQ Dilly Doo. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the topic of discussion, before we get into that, memes of the week. We've got some memes of the week which will kind of give away what the topic is about. So first meme is, it says libertarians are basically just people who took the phrase, "You can't tell me what to do, you aren't my real dad," and turned it into an entire political philosophy. Oh, one of my favorite ones. Then we've got old Murray Rothbard over here. Dylan had to point out who this guy is. It says, "Get in, pussy. We're privatizing everything." Pretty good one, that. And then of course the libertarian, the pure description of what it means to be a libertarian is pro-choice on everything, bro. Pro-choice on everything. Okay, so those are the memes out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of discussion for today is libertarianism is Satanism.
Yeah, it's going to get interesting.
Let that sink in for a bit. Libertarianism is Satanism. So, an announcement. From now on, we're going to be doing slightly shorter shows. I believe that people have got short attention spans and can't manage to, listen to us for a little bit longer than an hour or so.
We blow their minds away. So yeah.
Yeah, it's either that or they just get too triggered and turn it off after the first 5 minutes. I'm too triggered. I'm going to go and have a snowflake party somewhere. So anyway, so the topic of discussion, yes, libertarianism is Satanism. So we're going to try and keep the episode down to about 30 minutes. Okay, guys. So we're gonna try and rush through this one, but we'll try and do it as detailed as possible. So libertarianism, Satanism. I think we should start with the timeline. So I think we should start with where Satanism actually comes from.
For all of our heathen friends,
which is right here in the Bible. Okay, this is where it comes from. It comes from Bible and God and all of that. So essentially, the story of Satan is, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but as far as I know it, and as far as the Bible, or as far as I understand it, is God created angels, God created humans, or man. Sorry, God created man, and He commanded the angels to serve man. And the angels, being immortal and powerful, said, "No, bugger this. We're done with this. We're not going to serve these mere mortal men." And then what God did was He ordered them to do that. And then Satan, or Lucifer, actually set out on a rebellion, went on a rebellion against God, and essentially started fighting against God. God set it was Lucifer and a couple of other angels, I guess, got together and started a group and started fighting against the other angels. For 3 days, they fought. God's angels destroyed them, ripped them limb from limb, ripped them apart. And on the third day, they realized that they couldn't actually kill Lucifer and the other angels because they were immortal. So God expelled them from heaven, and they are continuously in a state of falling at the moment, which is where the term fallen angel comes from. I think that's about right, hey guys? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, broad strokes. Yeah. You know.
Broad strokes. Remember, we might be talking to a bunch of heathens over here, so let's keep the detail for when those heathens realize that the Bible is the word of God and they need to read it.
Every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess.
Exactly. So we want to now that we know the story of Satan and all of that. I mean, Satanism or modern day Satanism. No matter how much, and it's true what you said earlier on, Dylan. You said it's very sort of esoteric and it's not really easily defined, I guess. Would you agree?
Yeah. No, Satanism, modern Satanism, what is understood to be Satanism, is kind of a hodgepodge. So like what you're saying, it's all sort of tied in with Western esotericism and the occult. They're kind of intrinsically linked. So what is it? Of course, they sort of take this inspiration from the biblical character of Satan and sort of an addendum onto what you said, Scott. The Bible says that Satan, he went to the Garden of Eden, and there he sort of stood for kind of enlightenment in the sort of the Gnostic mind. So that Satan is not, not the root of corruption and creation, but rather the source of enlightenment by which man would have knowledge of good and evil, where upon eating of the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. However, in doing so, he brought death upon himself. So, to the mind of a Satanist, Lucifer is looked at with, sort of different eyes. So they see him as sort of a he's the enlightenment before the enlightenment, I guess. So I guess maybe that's the next episode. The enlightenment is satanic. But anyways, the Satanism, what is it? Really, it's like I said, it sort of has its roots in the some early Christian heresies, Gnosticism, the esoteric, various strands of the occult. There's no real clear cut of definition on it, but again, it's sort of tied in with enlightenment, and Lucifer is sort of seen as the embodying the force of the will and kind of liberation. Now, in popular go ahead.
Yeah, then that's where I suppose you were going to talk about Aleister Crowley now and stuff as well. Right?
Yeah. So when people think of modern Satanism, it's kind of closely tied to Aleister Crowley, who was founder of the Thelema cult. And his whole principal idea was do what thou wilt, right? So, be free, don't multiply, instead engage in, what does E. Michael Jones say? Sterile sexual relations. And they also mixed in all kinds of sex magic. I don't exactly know the details into that, but I believe there is some degree of buggery going on. But they also had some supernatural beliefs of a sort, which sort of isn't necessarily tied in with modern Satanism. So these people weren't necessarily...
Sorry, wasn't there some sort of weird link to Egyptian mythology and stuff as well with Aleister Crowley and his guys? I think there must have been.
I think there might have been. A lot of these occult groups sort of draw upon earlier pagan traditions and beliefs as sort of, as Jordan Peterson would say, a Jungian archetype sort of spanning across different cultures and whatnot. So certain constants that you could see across various civilizations. So they did have supernatural beliefs, and they imbibed in Western occultism. They were libertine, so sexual liberation, before it was cool. Crowley himself was kind of an open bisexual, and he was an individualist social critic. So he saw the individual as important.
Sound familiar, guys?
Others, yes.
So remind you of something, guys.
Yeah. I wonder what that's all
I
about.
wonder. So anyway, Dylan, we were actually when you before you or while you were crashed, myself and Russell were talking about, because specifically with regards to Crowley and his esotericism, I guess.
Yeah.
He the way that he was so, or his cults and stuff were, based on esotericism. And how I have a friend of mine who claims to be a Satanist. I mean, I don't believe him. I think it's just, he just does it to be cool or something. But anyway, and he refuses to tell me anything about it. So, and then every time you question him on it, there's just no answer, no answers, no replies, no nothing. And then Russell was talking about how the church had to sort of weed out Gnostics in the church as well. Carry on, Russell. Tell us the story then.
Yeah, if you the letter to First John letter, the first letter of John, not John the Gospel, 1 John, is basically a complete response to rooting out Gnosticism in the first century early church that had been around. It was like kind of like I say, it's very like that Greek higher knowledge type of thing, that like enlightenment type mystic. It's like enlightenment, but with a mystical element.
Yeah,
so
Gnosticism.
Secret knowledge.
Yes.
Knowledge and like kind of a secret knowledge mystery sort of thing. You know what I mean? And the Gospel of not the Gospel of John, the first 1 John in the Bible is actually written to as a countermeasure against Gnosticism.
Hectic. Anyway, Dylan, do you want to carry on where you were, moving into sort of modern Satanism?
Yeah, sure. So, like Russell was saying, the tie with Gnosticism is very clear. So, Gnosticism, of course, is an ancient Christian heresy, and a lot of these characters kind of get their inspiration from that. Modern, I guess, sort of a more, potentially a scam, potentially not a scam, branch of Satanism is the Church of Satan by Anton LaVey. And the thing with LaVey Satanism is that it's explicitly materialistic. So it is atheistic. It's more of a philosophy on life than actual belief in the supernatural. So it's materialistic. It rejects the body-mind or body-soul dualism that a lot of classic Greeks and most all religions believe. Rejects afterlife, after death, and it is explicitly, and this is from the Church of Satanism itself, explicitly influenced by Randian philosophy. So.
I wonder where we've heard that one. I wonder what else is explicitly influenced by Randian philosophy.
Yeah. So anyways, there's a definite link between the two. And but the critique of Randianism that LaVey had is that it sort of enthrones reason above the individual. Okay, so which left actually some brands of libertarians would happily agree with, like left libertarians, so like a Randian approach would be much more rationalistic, and certain strands of centrist or right-leaning libertarianism are quite rationalistic as well. But the left libertarians are much more about cultural, or not cultural expressionism. They're much more about personal expression, much more about liberation, and seeing this as that nature being unhinged by social constraints, and basically, gay guys defending their pot plants with machine guns, and tanks
and nuclear and nukes.
Yes. So it's there, and once you start sort of peeling the layers back, although Crowleyan ideas had an esoteric element to it, a belief in the supernatural in some sort of perverse way, the actual lived out day-to-day life was very libertarian, if I might use the word. And the LaVey Satanism is explicitly, which is atheistic, but is kind of an explicitly sort of libertarian-ish outgrowth. And it's also sort of inspired by Nietzscheanism to a certain extent, but
well,
for another time.
I mean, Dylan, for those of you that think that we're making this stuff up, I mean, Dylan actually sent us a link, which I won't put on the bottom of the thing. You can go of the YouTube comments or whatever, or the description and stuff. I'm not going to put it there. You guys can go and look up this garbage yourself. But it's actually from the Church of Satan's website, where it says Satanism and objectivism. It says objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand, is an acknowledged source for some of the satanic philosophy as outlined in the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. Ayn Rand is a brilliant and insightful author and philosopher, and her best-selling novels, Dun Dun Dun, Atlas Shrugged, and Dun Dun Dun, The Fountainhead, continue to attract deserved attention for a new generation of readers. I am a strong admirer of Ayn Rand, but I am even stronger admirer of Anton LaVey for the vital differences between philosophies of objectivism and Satanism. Yeah.
So again, there's some differences. I mean, we're not saying that, libertarianism is like, some explicit satanic doctrine, but if you actually look at the lived out implications of both philosophies and what they mean for human life, they're kind of identical. So,
yeah, we're not making this kind of like weird thing like it's like libertarians or some sort of Freemason organization for Satanists and stuff. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying the philosophies match up pretty tight.
Yeah, at least in terms of outcomes. Now, sort of tying it into libertarianism, it's the problem with it, and this is sort of where the satanic overlap comes in. Okay, so it's an ideology without values, except for non-aggression, right? So which some brands of Satanism would actually, endorse. These guys aren't particularly violent people necessarily, but the allowances of basically any and all lifestyles, any and all sort of practices and cultures it's a sort of de-civilizational force, which Satanism and libertarianism sort of has in common. So, except I think the Satanist is actually in some ways a bit more consistent in terms of sort of seeing the end of their philosophy. So I think sort of a LaVey brand of Satanism rejects morality altogether, but the libertarian will sort of have natural rights, which are self-evident in nature apparently, and so they're just so like, natural rights. That's why you can't steal from me. I'm like, based on what? I mean, and the people who I do give credit for is, like a certain theistic libertarians who do believe in, some higher power and whatnot. And they're sort of able to sort of at least have some coherent grounding for their worldview in terms of rights violation, right? So the whole reason there's right and wrong, logically speaking, would have to stem from a higher source, a deity of some kind. But so, these people, it's just, they just have some sort of rationalist ethic.
I just something else that I have seen before that I want to break down as well is the 11 satanic rules of the earth. Okay, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is legit. I mean, I've seen it on this website and stuff. It's there. So it's basically the 11 rules or their sort of tenets, you know what I mean? The satanic tenets. And tell me if this doesn't sound libertarian, okay? Number 1, do not give opinions or advice unless you are asked. Do not tell your troubles to others unless you are sure they want to hear it. When in another one's home, show them respect or else do not go there. If a guest in your home annoys you, treat them cruelly and without mercy. Do not make sexual advances unless you are given the mating signal. This is absolutely ridiculous. So, do not take that which does not belong to you unless it is a burden to the other person and they cry out to be relieved. I mean, this is acknowledge the power of magic if you have employed it successfully to obtain your desires. If you deny the power of magic after having called upon it with success, you will lose all you have obtained. That sounds very much like objectivism, eh? Very much like
in certain regards, yeah. The overlap between Randianism and Satanism is not accidental. They're kind of linked on some degree. And Rand herself was a very staunch kind of militant atheist. And of course, some Satanists are, but some of the sort of Crowleyan variety, Thelemites, they're not. So they would buy into what you're talking about, imbibing magic and whatnot. But in terms of like I said, the implications for society, the sort of lived out day-to-day existence, how do people live their lives, what they should pursue, they're very similar.
Well, the non-aggression.
I guess that's just what I have to say.
The non-aggression principle and stuff comes. It's point number 11. When walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask them to stop. If they do not stop, destroy them. That's the non-aggression principle right there.
Yeah, NAP.
It is. It's NAP right there. Tell me how it isn't. I mean,
yeah. And to be fair, certain other philosophies and traditions would sort of have that, but it's not just one thing, right? It's all these other things that you string them together, and you're like, that looks.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those things that all these things, Dylan, that you've mentioned, if you had to look at them just individually, you wouldn't call it a form of Satanism. But look at it all as a group together, get a very, very broad, a wide-angle view of things. You sew all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know, when because we kind of came up with this concept or Dylan kind of came up with this concept on Saturday when we were braaiing, and when we first said it, I was like, I don't know, hey, I don't know, really, I don't know if we can make that connection. And then when you start actually, because I mean, I didn't really know much about Satanism and the philosophy behind it, so sort of modern day Satanism and stuff, but I understood how the devil in the Bible works, which would link to Satanism in my mind. I mean, maybe Oaks have this new age kind of view of what Satanism is, but as a Christian, my view of what the devil is or Satan is what the Bible says it is, and the Bible works through things that got about another 5-10 minutes to go, Dylan. So the way that the devil works is because he can't physically take man, what he does is he tricks man into believing that he's in control, and that's essentially what libertarianism does.
Correct.
Is it what libertarianism does is it makes you believe that you are in control. You are the individual. Everything revolves around you, as long as your lifestyle doesn't bother anyone else. Okay. But the main focus is individuality and the fact that you are the focus, and you should direct. Well,
Yes.
especially objectivism. Ayn Rand's objectivism and stuff means that you should direct all your energy into accomplishing and reaching a better you. Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of, I mean, Ayn Rand had that saying that where she said that, what is it? I'm paraphrasing now, but something in the lines of, if you knew that this life was all you had, wouldn't you live it to the fullest?
If you know that this life is all that you have, wouldn't you make the most of it?
Something like that. She once said that. I'm pretty confident. I'll have to check and find it, but it was something like, if you knew that this is the only life you have, wouldn't you live it to the fullest? And us as Christians, we know that this is not the only life we have, and we still live it to the fullest, but within natural restrictions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Look, the thing is, the way the Satan in itself is basically a full-on deceiver more than anything else. So in the Garden of Eden, the story goes that the serpent said to Eve, didn't say to Eve, no man, don't listen to God, he's lying. The serpent said, did God really say? So it's a kind of like putting a ball in your court. What do you think? I'm sure you can make your mind up about this. I'm sure I mean, come on. I mean, you're a clever lady. Come on. You could. It's kind of stoking a bit of the ego there. You know what I mean? And if you look at it,
well, that's what Satan said to them. He said, "You're in control of your destiny. Go ahead, just do it. You're the one that." And that's what libertarians are all about. So,
yeah. Look, I mean, I don't know if I would like to just read a passage from Romans 1 from verse 18, if it's all right.
Yeah, go for it, man.
For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, the attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were they thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools, and they changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man, and birds and foot and animals and creeping things. Therefore God gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their heart, to dishonor their bodies among themselves.
Amen.
Yeah,
that's libertarianism right there.
Yeah. It's funny. We're kind of joking, but at the same time, we're not. I mean, because the wisdom, the wisdom of man is foolishness before God, right? And it's this idea that what you said. I mean, if you sort of like look at this new, and the atheist community and libertarians, there's a bit of a Venn diagram overlap, in case you guys didn't notice. And a lot of it is they have this, they create gods in the vision of corruptible man. So the flying spaghetti monster or some guy up in the clouds, right? And, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. So they overlook, the sort of natural world and sort of the glories of creation. And, they come up with these harebrained ideas about how the world should be. And at the end of the day, it all just sort of crumbles, and then you just have this big orgy of sex magic and buggery, and then immigrants come in and take over your land.
Yeah.
It's I get that's why
it's a philosophy of decadence.
I get so annoyed with oaks that claim that they're Christian libertarians. I've got no way to rationalize that. I just don't know.
Look, I mean, I get it. I tried to walk that line for a while, and I guess in a perfect world, ANCAP and Kapistan would be good, I guess. But it's kind of one of those things that it's particularly, and again, some of these guys, I do cut some slack, like Tom was, he's a Catholic and whatnot, and he hates the new mass and all that stuff. In his mind, he'd have a very, just like a private city he'd live in, and no heretics allowed, basically. But I mean, that's not a sustainable way for society, right? So, and I guess sort of the sustainability of these ideas, even of the sort of best thinking, right, libertarian types, it's kind of one of those, have the perfect be the enemy of the good sort of things, right? So I have this perfect vision of how, or not perfect vision, but the best workable vision of how society should be. And if I don't get it, then, this whole thing should just burn down, and in the end, nobody wins, right?
But how do you do that? And if you were talking about this dude that you were talking about, what's his name?
Tom Woods.
What's his name? Tom Woods, yeah. That his perfect ideal world would be sort of him having his own little, county or whatever it is, where only libertarians lived and no heretics allowed and stuff. How do you do that as a libertarian without enforcing some sort of protectionism?
No, I get, and that's the thing, and then what you end up doing is you just end up creating just a mini state, right? Initially, it's all bought into, everyone buys the land and whatnot, but sooner or later, there's going to have to be enforcement structures which will more and more resemble a state, right? That's just what happens. So, so again, those guys, I think I see them as sort of allies and whatnot, but the sort of fly by the seat of their pants, just, I just want, I'm fiscally conservative, socially liberal types, worthless. It's this, like, have you guys ever watched a libertarian conference? It's like the Libertarian Body Conference.
Microphone 1.
I would like to ask the body to consider that the Libertarian Party acquire a mascot. And I would like to propose Dobby from the Harry Potter series, who in the 7th book says, Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf, and Dobby has come to save Harry Potter and his friends.
Good afternoon again, libertarians.
Because the truth is that in the future we'll have a jetpack.
Yeah, it's like Comic-Con, man. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, A, these guys aren't serious, and B, it's all hedonism.
Well, look, I mean, the thing
it's
is,
doing what I want. It's satanic.
ultimately, Dylan, and guys, I mean, the thing is, the libertarianism / liberal, whatever you want to call it, the position that we're arguing against, it can't grip people's imagination. It can't be it fails to really kind of bind people. It's too much of a it can't. There's no glue in it. It can't bring people together. It's not a message. If you look at how we spoke about Mussolini was able to rile people up, how Oswald Mosley in Britain in the 1930s was able to rile people up. You can't get masses riled up over libertarianism, for goodness sakes. I mean,
well, Russell, it's simple.
You know what
because
I mean? You know what I mean? People
Russell,
have been riled up by the gospel and these sort of things. The gospel of the Lord Jesus has done more.
Russell, it's simple. Libertarians base their entire process or their campaigning and stuff strictly based on principle and zero emotions. That's the only reason why they will always fail, because they appeal to
good luck
only.
And ultimately, they base it on themselves, right?
Correct.
This is sort of again to tie it off. My last point, I guess, to put a little satanic bow on all this. It's all I want to live my life the way I want to live it. I want to, bugger this frozen turkey in my basement and watch, Japanese tentacle porn, and you shouldn't be able to say anything about it. And I want cheap labor, and I want someone to cut my garden, and I want to be a Bitcoin billionaire, and I want to die married to a sex bot, and that's beautiful. Satanism.
Satanism. Anyway, guys, that's it. I think we're about 35 minutes in. I think we've done some good time. And I'm sure that we've got some Jimmys nice and rustled over here. So I'm sure the Oaks are going to get severely triggered. Disclaimer, guys. We still see certain libertarians as allies. Don't worry, guys. We'll still be your friends. Let's maintain the triggering to a lower level. If you don't like,
we're discussing things. We're not fanatics.
Yeah, exactly. If you disliked what we said, make one of those. If you guys disliked what we said, go ahead and make your own YouTube rebuttal video, like reactionary opinions. Say libertarianism is Satanism debunked, or whatever it is. So go ahead, guys. You're more than welcome to do that.
You can make your own fiery polemics.
Yeah. In the meantime, take your triggering pills to keep that triggering down to a minimum over there. You get your panties in a knot. Anyway, guys, stay reactionary out there. Do you guys have anything else that you want to say before?
I'm done. Dylan, thanks, Dylan. This was you. I think you can take credit for this one. It was good work, man.
Yeah, excellent work. Anyway, guys, stay reactionary out there because
God wills it.
God wills it.